Now, if you guys know me, you guys know that foot jams are one of my favorite. And it's not my favorite because it's a super simple trick or because I think it looks really cool. They're my favorite because there's so many options with them, but they also all lead into each other. And now there's 3 different categories of foot jams, I'm gonna say. So you have beginner foot jams, which are really easy foot jams to do that anyone can do as a beginner. And they work their way all the way up to expert level foot jams that, well, you start as a beginner and you eventually do as an expert. And so I'm gonna kind of walk you through just what these different foot jams are and try and give you a couple pointers for each one. I'm not gonna go super in depth on it, but more so I just wanna give you the idea of these different options so that you can set some goals and work towards these different foot jams and also understand why I like this trick so much. Okay, beginner foot jams, where you can probably do these right away. The first one is just a flat foot jam. You're just gonna roll along the ground, you're gonna put your foot in your tire and you're gonna jam it. That's why it's called a foot jam. You're jamming your foot. It's very simple. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. Okay, so it's very self-explanatory. You roll at a nice speed, you take your foot and you jam it. Now with this, the more speed that you have, and the more force that you apply with your chest, the steeper your foot jam is gonna go. This one's a beginner foot jam because obviously you can be a beginner, you can take your foot, you can put it in the tire. It's very simple for everyone. Now a step above that gets a little bit harder is a foot jam to fakie. Usually you need to be on a bank to do a foot jam to fakie, but not always. I'll do it here on flat. Same thing, you roll, you foot jam, and when you're coming out of the foot jam, you throw your weight back a little bit more and put your foot on your pedal. So this is what that looks like. So we're gonna cruise, we're gonna find a nice comfortable speed. We're gonna jam our foot and we're coming backwards. Okay, very simple. The concept, it's a very low risk trick. Like you won't die if you mess up on this, but understanding the balance gets a little bit harder. So foot jam flat, foot jam fakie. Now, the third one is like a foot jam 180 on a bank. This is gonna work you into a mid-level foot jam trick, which is a foot jam fakie, or no, a foot jam 180 on flat. But here we go. We're gonna go over, this is a pretty steep bank. It's better on a more mellow bank. Now this one is a little bit harder than the first 2, but it's not a mid-level trick because you can do it pretty easily on this. You're just taking what you did with the flat foot jam and applying it to this bank. So you're riding up it, you're carving a little bit, and then you're jamming. And with that carve, when you're carving with that jam, your momentum's gonna carry the bike around. So you ride up, you carve, you jam, and it's gonna do that. And then you just roll back down. I'll show you what that looks like. Carve, jam. Now those are some of the beginner ones that anyone can learn within the first few months of riding their bike. But what if you've been riding longer? What if you already have the flat foot jam and you want to mix it up a little bit? Well, let's do some mid-level foot jams. Now, these are gonna have a primary focus on a quarter because that's where foot jams really come into play. Like you do foot jams on quarters more than anything. And that's gonna be the first mid-level foot jam, is just a foot jam on the top of a quarter. It gets kind of hard because that coping pokes out and the coping can cause you to fall over, and it's not very fun to fall over. So you need to have a good control of your flat foot jam before you take your foot jam over to the quarter. But once you have that, the quarter is going to be the first mid-level foot jam trick. So we're essentially doing what we did on the bank for the quarter. You're carving, you're putting the foot jam in after the carve, you're compressing your body, and then you're uncompressing it to hop back in. This is a pretty tough trick for a lot of people, but once you understand that you can get very steep on it, you're gonna be fine. So once you master that, you're pretty much ready to take a foot jam anywhere and start mixing things up. The next mid-level foot jam is gonna be a rock and roll to foot jam. So rock and roll is a lip trick where your front tire is above the coping and your back tire is below the coping. And what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna do a rock and roll, pop up into a foot jam, and then pop back in. It's pretty complicated, but if you know how to foot jam, it's not gonna be that hard. So now the next one is gonna be a foot jam 180 on flat. It's a little bit harder because you have to have good control of the foot jam and you have to have good compression. You're gonna do the same thing that you did on the bank in the beginner foot jam. Carve, compress your body, and uncompress out. You wanna make sure that you're jamming the foot at about 90 degrees. So this is what that's gonna look like. Whoa. Now the next one is another lip trick, but it doesn't involve a normal foot jam. It's actually a Vader jam. Now a Vader jam is pretty crazy because you're putting your foot on the outside of the tire and the outside of the fork, and you're using pressure from your shin to hold the bike up. It's a tough trick, but it looks cool and it's really rewarding. You just need to have the understanding of the balance of the foot jam because that is the same as the balance in the Vader. And to lock into it, you want to do a bit of an alley-oop. This might be more of an expert level foot jam, but it's a mid-level foot jam in this video. So here we go, I'll show you one of those. So if you look, my foot is outside of here instead of where it normally is in the foot jam. And that makes it very complicated, but the balance is still the same. Now, there are a bunch of expert tricks. The coolest thing about this foot jam is that you can mix pieces of the beginner tricks, pieces of the mid-level foot jams, and throw them all together and create your own crazy combination as long as you know what to do with your feet. Now, I'm gonna add a point in here that I should have mentioned at the beginning, but to do a proper foot jam, it's best if you're jamming with your front foot. So I'm right foot forward, I'm gonna jam with my right foot. Otherwise, your pedals do weird things when you take off your back foot and try and put them in. Like, it's still possible, but it's gonna be a lot harder. A Vader jam might be impossible with your back foot, but then after you learn foot jams, you're gonna wanna learn them with your back foot so you could do like tail whip to foot jam and different combinations that way. But anyway, some of the expert level foot jam tricks. The first one's one of my favorites. It's a crowd pleaser. It's really cool to do. And it's just a 360 foot jam into a quarter or a 270 foot jam into the quarter. Once you understand your weight distribution and your balance in the foot jam, you can do these pretty easily. You just cruise along, you carve, you jam your foot just like a 180 foot jam, but do it a little bit more over rotated, uncompress and pop into the quarter. They look beautiful and they feel like fun. This should be everyone's goal. If you guys are beginner foot jammers right now, you should have the goal to work up into this foot jam. It's the coolest trick in my opinion. And yeah, anyway, I'll show you what that looks like right now. Now the next expert level foot jam trick is just gonna be a foot jam whip. I'd say it's only considered expert level if you do it on a quarter. It's very hard on a quarter. You gotta have insane amounts of balance, but you can learn this on flat ground. And to do it properly, it's still gonna be an expert trick because the way you uncompress your body and the way that you jam your foot in. I'll show you what one of those look like right here. I met this guy named Jake last time I was here, and he does 360 foot jam tail whips on flat. It's the craziest thing. He just carves, foot jams, tail whips, uncompresses, and it's insane. That is like an above expert level, but the foot jam tail whip is a pretty expert level trick. Now, there are a lot more expert level foot jam tricks that you can do. These are all just some good examples for you. For the bike school members who are watching this, make sure to post your foot jam attempts in the Facebook group so that Nick and I can give you some feedback and we can help you figure out what you're doing wrong. If you want to learn any of these higher level tricks, just shoot us a message so that I can give you the pointers that you need to be doing to actually work on this trick and to actually master it. Get out there, do some foot jams. You guys know I love this trick so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.